The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Mario Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine.
The one and only Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
I'm three-time national wrestling writer and broadcaster of the year, Jason Bryant, and I'll bring you news, reviews, previews, and interviews with the most notable names and personalities in wrestling. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app by logging on to matttalkonline.com/listen. Short Time is sponsored by Flips Wrestling. Share your attitude and be heard at flipswrestling.com. Now it's time, because you've always got time for Short Time.
Stop Bloodround. Stop Bloodround. Kevin grew up wrestling.
Just kidding. It's not Bloodround. It's the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, episode 268. My name is Jason Bryant. Today, because I had an unfortunate scheduling mishap, I had to call up a couple guys from the JV squad. Had to call up Richard Immel from USA Wrestling and Tommy Baranoski from Bloodround. And because Bloodround is on the show, we might have to use the explicit tag tonight. If this is your first time listening, and this is how Tommy and Kevin always preface the show. If this is your first time listening. Well, if this is your first time listening to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, this typically isn't the format. So we had some guys. They're not stepping up from the JV. I was just kidding. They are full-time starters, at least one of them on the Matt Talk Podcast Network. Tommy and Kevin's show, a little too, how do we say, Richard, I'm looking for a word here.
I'm just in need of credit card information at the moment.
Yeah, Richard's ordering me, John. So maybe they're listening. They can give us a sponsorship. But Tommy's show not a part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network because of maybe their conduct unbecoming to Major League Baseball, perhaps. But anyway, Tommy Baranoski from Bloodround, Kevin Claunch, kind of, he punked out. So we just got Tommy, who I have hung out with a couple times, still yet to hang out with Kevin, so I think he's more of an enigma. I think he's just a character that sings to himself in the car on Snapchat, because I think that's all he is. And Richard joining us, he's about to break a milestone. Bonus Points, the podcast from USA Wrestling, about to cross the 1 year mark. Tommy, you guys released episode 90 on Tuesday, the 28th, I believe, and that's the day we're recording this. So first of all, gentlemen, Tommy, welcome back to the program. Bloodround has not been Bloodround has not been represented since December of 2014. You were back on episode 131. We've gone 137 more episodes since. Richard has actually been on now. This is his fifth time. So Richard, Chael Sonnen, and Julia Salata entering that rarefied air. So firstly, Tommy, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I'd like to think that it was so much of a great impact that you couldn't have me back until now, but I honestly think it was just your morbid curiosity to who were these two guys drinking beers and decided to start a wrestling podcast back almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah, because now I'm going to have to pull up the episode listing to figure out when the day I discovered Bloodround. So let's see. Let's go.
Well, it was funny, too, because, I mean, like, when you first had us on, and I don't like to compliment Jason Bryant as much as I can, but
you do mention me just about every show, though.
I know, but the king of podcasting, you really had us on as sort of a morbid curiosity, but also hey, this is a great medium, and you have helped us out a lot along the way. But when we were first, we had like maybe 30 listeners a week. I mean, we were really, really small time, and I do honestly think you were just morbidly curious as to who the hell these guys were.
Richard, I'm going to say this. I mean, they're in a position where they can say the stuff that sometimes we wish we could say, and we can't say it because, one, you're gainfully employed by USA Wrestling. Two, I used to be. And three, I kind of have some contracts and some things that I could probably lose out if I dropped too many Effenheimers on my show.
I would like to talk about Jimmy John's right now and how there's no place near the USA Wrestling office that delivers here, and I'm highly upset.
Wait, what? Seriously?
Yes. Yeah, I'm very disappointed. Only pick up Jimmy John's, you're slacking, that sponsorship deal's off the table. And but yeah, to your point, I don't know. What were we talking about again? Sorry,
I think the last time Immel was on my show, he talked about Jersey Mike's. So I'm confused as far as what subs Richard Immel's going towards. I mean, what sub sandwich does BDI go for? I don't know.
And there's the first reference.
I do prefer a nice long Jersey Mike's sub. I will say that. And it was Jason's idea to go with Jimmy John's, but Jersey Mike's is where it's at. Shout out to my Twitter follower at Jersey Mike's.
Jimmy John's follows me.
Wow.
Yeah, Rob Sesternino of Survivor fame actually follows me now on Twitter.
The guy who went bankrupt after winning $1 million?
I don't know. He's got a bunch of shows, podcasts about reality TV. I had the distinction of hosting the podcast awards on Sunday night. So because of that, I got a bunch of new followers from various non-wrestling related shows. Because of the 40, 17 are somehow related to the Matt Talk Podcast Network. So I'm not getting any new followers that way. But yeah, hosting that got me one follower. I doubt he's even going to do anything about wrestling. But yeah, so as I was saying, the original question before Richard
I got you, Jason.
What do you got?
Yes, I would love to have the freedom that Tommy and Kevin employ on a weekly basis. What is that, an early Wednesday morning release that you guys have?
We try. I mean, it's nice to get that early hump day release. I mean, it just feels good.
Yeah, it was a little premature this week, though.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
Came out Tuesday.
Those things happen. Take it as a compliment.
Okay, just in case this is your first time listening, we're probably going to have to label this the explicit tag. Those of you who listen to all of our shows, we really appreciate it. And Richard, I had a show when I was at USA Wrestling called Matt Chat. Those archives are actually available still. I re-released them. Go to mattchat.matttalkonline.com. You can listen to all 31 of those episodes. The last episode was right before the Olympic trials in 2012. We had Greg Warren on. Then he's been on a couple times on various different shows. And Richard, you brought a podcast back to USA Wrestling coming up on that 1 year mark. You launched with Jordan Burroughs. I believe didn't I eclipse him in terms of I think I might have come to eclipsing him on total. Let's see. I'm gonna pull up the stats to see if I get a humble brag here. But you started with Burroughs. You've had great guests on. What's it meant to you to be able to produce a show like this and give it to the wrestling community and really provide more content from the national governing body?
Yeah, in all seriousness, it's been really fun for me to be able to handle this project. It's kind of my baby, sort of taken it from scratch and just evolved it, with the help of Jason, obviously. But yeah, launched with Burroughs. Man, we're a couple weeks before the Pan Am Games last year. I think July. It was it was a little rough, but I really do appreciate the project. I appreciate Gary, my boss, Rich, everyone here supporting the project, and we get a lot of great feedback on it. And I think it's a good way to document the history of USA Wrestling through the eyes of the athletes, the people that are involved. I need to get Jordan on again before we hit the Olympics, because you're right. Actually, who passed him? Miles Martin.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats right now. Miles Martin, Jordan Burroughs, Bo Nickel, Kyle Dake. Then our World Championships preview show was like a 2-hour marathon.
And people still listen to it. It's great. The World Championships were over, 9 months ago, 10 months ago. But yeah, it's great. There's a great following, but I don't know. I mean, I love it. I love doing this. I love bringing it every week. Or try to bring it every week. I'm struggling this week, but I'll get it done. Maybe I'll have Kevin Clonch on my show this week.
Yeah, you should. Motorsports is great, though. I mean, there is no shortage of awesome stories. I mean, you could go to almost any wrestling tournament in the country, and there is bound to be at least a dozen great stories there. And not always it's going to be Jordan Burroughs or somebody going for a gold medal, but somebody who maybe started with wrestling late and is, or maybe blossomed late or something like that. I mean, there are just so many amazing stories in everyone's journey, especially to the level that it gets to where they're at the Olympic Training Center and they have time to sit down with Richard Immel or Skype in after NCAA championship. I mean, all those stories are great. So I always look forward to, Mr. Immel's podcast each week because, I mean, it's never short. I mean, Brandon Slay is probably my favorite episode. But there's never short of amazing stuff each week.
Yeah, it's cool getting the older guys on, the guys who aren't competing anymore, because they have so many cool stories. I could just talk with them for hours and hours and hours. I talked with Bill Zadek last week. We went for 2 hours, and we're like, I guess we should stop now. It's at the 2 hour mark, And same with Slay. I just couldn't stop talking to Slay. I just kept asking questions and asking questions. It was so fascinating. That's probably my favorite one. The Kenny Monday one was really good too. I think he had a great perspective and storyline as well. Plus, he's a Oklahoma guy, so that doesn't hurt. And the Okies are taking over USA Wrestling now. By the way, we're going to have 2 on the board here pretty soon in my department alone. So
how's that going to work though? You're going to have bedlam in the communications department.
Well, as
first of all, we might want to let people know, if they don't know what we're talking about, there was an open position in the communications department, and it was filled by Miss Taylor Miller, who was the sports information director for Oklahoma State Wrestling the last couple of years, a winner of the National Wrestling Media Association's SID of the Year in Division I, not this past year, but the year prior. So knows a little bit about wrestling from Stillwater and has really come a long way. So you're going to have a Sooner, a Cowboy, and Gary Abbott is a BU Terrier. In there. So got a lot of Wisconsin people you got to offset, though, in that office.
Yeah, I think there's only 3 Wisconsin people now. I think we're toning it down on the Wisconsin people and figuring out where the talent pool really comes from down in the great state of Oklahoma. It's also funny. I think we resemble our mascots as well. Gary the Terrier. I'm more of a Sooner, and Taylor's a Cowgirl. So I think we've got it figured out.
Yeah, I just can't imagine why anyone would want to leave Oklahoma. I mean, it's just so strange.
Well, when you live in Michigan, you don't understand.
Speaking of Michigan, one of the topics that Tommy and Kevin typically bring up on Bloodround is their particular flavor of beverage that they drink during the episode. And typically, I don't imbibe while doing the show because I try to be somewhat professional. But in their honor, I had to crack open my very last Bell's Oberon that is in my my beer fridge. And in case you're wondering, I'm building a studio, Speakeasy, where the Short Time Podcast will eventually be from. Right now, I'm in my basement, which is kind of almost stereotypical of podcasting. Oh, you're podcasting from your basement? Well, yes, because I'm in Minnesota. We have basements. That's where my office is. But there's going to be a studio, and it's going to be a bar. And it's going to have microphones, so when guests come into town, I've actually had people on the show in my home office. And when I say people, I mean Chris Pendleton. He's the only one that's actually been here because he was recruiting Lance Bennick right down the street from my house. But I'm going to eventually have the fridge. It's going to be the Speakeasy. I believe it's going to be called the Monarch Speakeasy, in case you're wondering. And it'll be the studio, and I'll have a nice selection. So right now, currently in my fridge, even though I'm counting this Oberon, 23 different varieties of craft beer. So I'm pretty good with the beer. I even got a Google document with it, so I might even tweet that out because I tweeted out a spreadsheet of it 2 weeks ago. They're like, Chuck Barbie, the NCAA rules chair, is like, did you just make a beer spreadsheet? Yes, sir, I did. Yes, sir, I did.
Well, I'm also imbibing in an Oberon, so cheers. I mean, Bell's Brewery, just about 45 minutes off of where I sit right now, so good place.
That's Kalamazoo, home of the Western Michigan Broncos, right?
Right. They actually have a national champion. He coaches. He's an assistant coach here at Granville. So one of the programs we lost to Title IX. Also home to Derek Jeter, if that's your thing.
Well, I'm an Angels fan, so no, Derek Jeter's not my thing. But, interesting you bring this up. You said the words Title IX, and anybody that follows me on Twitter for the last, knows that I can get in some tirades, and said individual blocked me. But when it comes to that, there were 2 major passings in sports as we record this today. Pat Summitt, the late head women's basketball coach at the University of Tennessee, and then NFL veteran coach Buddy Ryan, both known for their innovations in sports. I want to talk a little bit about Pat Summitt just for a moment, because before you tune out and say we're talking about women's basketball, I tweeted something the other day that what Pat Summitt did for women's basketball is akin to what Dan Gable did for wrestling. And I covered women's basketball for a long time at Old Dominion when the team was actually a notable name in women's college basketball. I drove 12 hours to Knoxville. And let me tell you the impact that Pat Summitt had on that program. I'm in Knoxville. I'm a freshman in college. Old Dominion's ranked number 2 in the country. Tennessee's ranked number 1. This is the year after they met in the national finals, a game Tennessee won. So we drive 12 hours to Knoxville, got press credentials through WODU radio. And the men played South Carolina in the afternoon at Thompson Bowling Arena. 13,000. Really good crowd for an SEC men's basketball game. Well, Thompson Bowling Arena seats about 25,000 people. The women's game sold out a week in advance. So you've got 25,000 to see women's basketball. And Pat Summitt was always a very classy coach. I interviewed her a number of times, always very respectful of her opposition. But she's a firecracker, man. She would really get after it. I mean, she was unrelenting when it came to, pressuring her athletes to do the best they could. And of course, the officials. And, she demanded respect, a lot like what we saw with Gable coming through, and you get that type of correlation between the two. They're both legends. Like you say to a general sports fan, wrestling, I think a lot of them are just going to think Iowa. You say to a general sports fan, women's basketball, they're going to think Tennessee and UConn. So what Pat Summitt did to change the game, and with the Title IX, I mean, they had a lot of hurdles in those early years. I read a great story today on USA Today about how much she impacted women's basketball, and we are fortunate enough to have someone like that in wrestling. We have several that are coaches that really changed the sport of wrestling in their generations. You think back to the old Oklahoma A&M era and Oklahoma back in those days when they were setting the bar, and then Iowa, and then you've got the runs that John Smith's teams had at Oklahoma State. You've got J-Rob at Minnesota had a good run there for a couple of years. Kale, what he's doing right now. So we're seeing trend-setting coaches, but I just want to give Pat Summitt a tip of the cap for just being an all-around awesome sports person, changing the sport. And I'm curious on, first we'll start with you, Richard. Being a wrestling person, we couldn't help but pay attention to somebody like, Tennessee women's basketball. Even if we weren't a women's basketball fan, it's like, wow, their success was just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I echo everything you just said. It was sad. This is one of those things that I sort of felt, even though I didn't really have a relationship. I wasn't a Tennessee fan or anything like that, but I did watch Pat Summitt. I watched her coach. I watched her teams. You could just tell something special's going on there. She really did, like you said, pave the way, a pioneer for women's sports, for women. And I can even parallel that to women's wrestling. I think about it. That's the first thing I thought about today was, man, she's done so much for women's sports in general. And it definitely had an impact on our wrestlers today. We're seeing the growth in women's wrestling across the country and the opportunities that they have, and that's because of people like Pat Summitt who paved the way. And it doesn't matter what sport it is, having someone of that caliber, that personality, that ferocity, whatever it is, being out in front, leading the charge, very important. So we definitely lost a good one today, man. Not much else to say there besides I was a fan, and I appreciate everything that she did. Actually Oklahoma has a really good women's basketball team, so that's why I followed it. And they had some great battles. I don't know, man. It's a sad thing, but you have to applaud her life and career and how she lived and was a pioneer for women's sports.
It's so incredible too with these coaches that have done things that like Gable has done and Kale Sanderson has done. I mean, it's amazing to me to think like you take like Madison Bumgarner or Clayton Kershaw and then say, okay, all of a sudden they retire from active athleticism and then become a coach and then just win every national championship. It's insane to think of the thought. But that's actually what these people have done, and what they've done for their sport's incredible. And it takes like the total package. You can't just be like a strategist. You can't just be a personality. You can't just be a recruiter. You can't just be just this one-dimensional person. You have to be the total package, and that's what you see with these rare people like Gable and Summitt and Kale Sanderson and these people. Obviously, we have more wrestling references because that's who the three of us are. But and then I think I saw another thing today. In her 36 or so years, every one of her athletes graduated.
That was an amazing stat. ESPN put that out, and Think about that. 38 years, every single one of your athletes graduates. No matter what sport, that is something you've got to attain to make your school and viable if they're winning national championships. And what was it, University of Cincinnati, when Bob Huggins was the coach of the men's team there, their graduation rate was like 4% or something. It was something horrendously bad. And they made a Final Four that year, and it was just like, man, their graduation rate of those players was 4%. So you do that. If you've got a wrestling coach with a graduation rate of 100%, they're not going to lose their job, and chances are they're going to be highly respected by the university. So that's another thing we can learn from the great coaches that graduate their players, and in our case, graduate their wrestlers, because you don't play wrestling. But another thing I want to move on to is we did take an open call on Twitter. We didn't really give people a whole lot of heads up because the Fresno State president, Dr. James Castro, was supposed to be this week's guest on Short Time. He had to reschedule. Yes, president of the university. And by the way, if you haven't had a chance to listen to Richard's interview with Troy Siner, the new coach at Fresno State, starting up next year, go back and check that out either on the Matt.com or Matt Talk Online. So our first questions that we're going through, we're going to spring these in. Actually, I'm in no particular order. The first one, Chris Christian, of course, he was mentioned on Bloodround the other day, the underscore Mr. underscore amazing. Can Claunch and Tommy even do a clean podcast? No beer, no Cox jokes, no mini earthquakes. Is that a true or false question? Can that happen? Richard, I'll start with you.
Why are you starting with me?
Because I don't want Tommy to answer right away. I got to get my edit button ready. I'm ready for Tommy with the censor beep. So,
can they do it?
No,
maybe,
no.
But why would you want them to do it? Is the thing. They say everything I want to say and more. So I don't know why. Like, I get my kicks listening to Bloodround every week. I don't know, Tommy. I mean, we've talked. I've been on the show. I was a little more liberal with my statements I'm trying to be really professional here on the Short Time podcast because that's just how Jason is. But yeah, I love. I don't know. Does that answer the question? Tommy, take it over.
Who was the comedian that you had to bleep out a bunch of times?
Oh, Brooks Wheelan.
Yeah, because I want to break his record.
Okay, edit point. Yeah, he told me to. We were talking about Rugrats. I was like, man, I hated that. She goes, oh man, beep you. It was like, it was great. Matthew Modine did say ball sack on the show.
Well, I loved
Mike Malinconico, of course. He dropped a couple ones.
I loved meeting Shane Sparks at the Olympic trials, and he was like, "Oh, hey, dude, I listened to you guys a few times. I loved it. Aren't you the guy that said Missouri?"
Claunch said that about Northern Iowa too, and that's the one that I think I spit out my coffee on my screen. I about lost it. I think that was the moment I'm like, yeah, these guys are first up when they come out. But all right, next question. We're just going to leave that one alone. So the answer, I guess, was a resounding no. Okay, James Stockhausen gives us...
Who would want to? I mean, if you have... I mean, we kind of created this lonesome pirate ship out in the deep seas of wrestling land. Why would you want to at this point? I mean, we, have at it,
Is this like a Khaleesi pirate ship or
a Seton Hall pirate ship?
Yeah, what kind of...
Well, we got to work as many Game of Thrones references into this.
Can you do me a favor?
Frustrate JB.
Jason, hold on 1 second. Let me take this over. Tommy, can you please give us a beat? You know the beat I'm talking about. You do it every week before Game of Thrones. Can you let me have it?
Do 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 do.
My edit beep isn't that long, guys.
No, Tommy does that. He sends me a snap every week before Game of Thrones, and he has this little beanie baby dragon. You might have more than one of them now. I don't know, but he puts the dragon in a different location every time and plays this. He hums the song. It just makes my life. It completes me.
I send Richard a video every time I hear "Cause I'm Happy."
Yes. What was that? Was that Open? Was that the Open 2014 or I don't know. We have a song from every tournament that just gets replayed and replayed and replayed. Like when I say Budapest 2013, what do you do?
Well, I always just think about the Koreans doing Gangnam Style.
Oh, well, that was a good one, but it was the. We had
the Star Wars. That was one. It was like every award was the closing scene in Return of the Jedi's music.
Or Rocky. It was or Rocky. We get Rocky 4 every now and then.
Dude, Rocky 4 was like on every Wrestling Room CD player from like 1990 to like 90, at least when I graduated in 97. I mean, when I started announcing wrestling tournaments, it's like, here you go, Twinkie, here's the Rocky CD. And I'm like, all right, got it. And it was like, some of those songs are still in my rotation when I play music. Now we've got DJs and stuff that control all of it. But it was like, you hear War. It's like, and I'm just getting all pumped up, Anyway, you were
my
talking.
My sister, a weird story. My sister is so evil.
She can drink you, and she can drink you under the table.
On.
We've established that
yeah,
twice.
She can.
She punched me in the nose and gave me a bloody nose at Buffalo Wild Wings. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, I do remember
that. Right in front of Gary Abbott. But she would actually steal opposing teams' CDs that they warmed up to, and then play them when they came to wrestle us. So they would like get confused as far as like what was happening. Like she's that evil.
Oh, I got one that's not necessarily evil, but about messing with the other team. And after I graduated, well, actually before I graduated, there was this really small school that had moved up from single A to double A. This is before Virginia went to this awful 6-class system, not counting the private schools. So there's 7 Virginia state champs each year now, but Franklin High School, which is about 75 miles away from us, they move up from single A, so they're in our district, and it's like a haul to get out there. I mean, the bus ride took longer than the match one year. So then we just win the Virginia duels. We beat Great Bridge. We beat this Mount Anthony Union, which is Steve Forrest for you Greco fans, his alma mater. Steve was actually a freshman on that team. We beat Mount Anthony Union from Vermont, who at that time had won like 14 straight state titles. They were ranked like 18th in the country, and we mudhole them in the finals. And we go to wrestle. We get nationally ranked 24th in the country by Rob Sherrill and USA Today Wrestling Coast to Coast back then. And Franklin comes in the next year and be like, the guys are warming up, and I'm giving them like Pure Funk Volume 1 or like disco music to warm up to. And we've got a mat lamp, which we had just installed that year. And we were the Bulls or the Bull Islanders or the Islanders. I mean, if you've watched the Allen Iverson documentary, you know about where Poquoson is. That's notwithstanding anyway. I think Willie threw some shade at me about that the other day. But they finished warming up. And then they're like, yeah, we're gonna mess Poquoson up. Then the lights go out. Boom, mat lamp, Bulls on parade right out of the gate. And it's like now the 24th ranked team in the country, and all the kids that were bouncing up for Franklin are like, oh man, we are gonna get smoked. And it was 83-0 in about 27 minutes. So that was not the evil thing. But then we warmed up Lafayette the next year, and I gave them like Christmas music. Yeah, they weren't too pleased about that. But evilness.
Jason, do you know what time Murder, She Wrote's on tonight?
I don't have Bill anymore. So actually, it might be on one of those weird over-the-air, like extra digital channels you get, like 5.7 or something for those of you cord cutters. I don't know. It's probably on like some independent channel. Usually that comes on about 7:30, if I recall correctly.
We're in the middle of Big Brother right now. What's going on?
Well, I didn't watch Sundays yet, so I've got the CBS All Access, so I will go back and watch once I get done. After, as we record this, again, this isn't a live show, but yeah. And basically, we're not talking really hardly anything about wrestling. So moving on to the next.
Well, before we get too far into wrestling, I mean, the whole reason this show is largely happening is because, do we have contractions? Like, what's happening here? I mean, is baby number 2 about to burst? Like, what's going on?
Baby number 2 is due July 6th, but the doctors basically said any day now. And my wife is still going to work. She's still working. She's like, I'm ready for this thing to be over. And, after our last, after Lucy, who just turned 4, was born, and she had some issues. My wife was on bed rest for a month before Lucy was born. I was actually on my way. We were going up to, this is a little backstory on my first daughter, because number 2 will be a girl. So I've got to move. My wife's got an appointment. We're going to check out the baby, and, supposed to give birth on the south side of Denver. She worked at Dish Network, which is on that Meridian complex. Those who drive straight up 25 from Colorado Springs, probably 45 minutes from there. We go in and they're like, okay, we got some issues. You're going to have to go in for bed rest. And I'm supposed to fly out that morning to Akron for University Nationals and Fila Cadets. So I'm like, okay, call up the office. Like, I'm going to move my flight. And then they go, okay, yep, you are stuck here. So we're like, all right, can we go home and get our stuff? Yeah, don't tell us you did that. So we go home, get our stuff, come back. So, like, beginning of May, or actually it was probably Memorial Day weekend, my wife goes in and they had to move us to up on the north side of Denver to Presbyterian St. Luke's. So that's another, it's like 62 miles exactly, but it could take an hour and 10 minutes or it could take 2 hours and 10 minutes. So my wife was stuck up there for a month before she gave birth to Lucy. And then Lucy was in the NICU for 4 months. Now, thankfully, she's great. You don't have any issues now. So this pregnancy is completely different because my wife is still like, we're 8 days away from the due date. And she's still going to work. I mean, watering the grass. I mean, or the plants. I'm mowing the lawn. But she's doing things that she would normally do. So baby number 2 could come out any day. But my wife's like healthy, doing everything great. The baby's looking great. So I actually have to cut my Fargo trip a day short, which was like cutting off a finger. For those of you that know how much I love that tournament. So Richard is going solo. Actually, no, he'll have Taylor with him the first day. I'm actually going to step in and help them out for the rest of the week. But baby number 2, really due any day now. I mean, I'm sure if, first of all, if the water breaks during this episode, that is the reason why the show just ended. Anyway, so.
I have a weird story about Fargo, though. So this.
Richard and I love stories about Fargo.
I've got plenty.
Well, a kid here from just north of Grand Rapids, Rockford, Michigan, where Ben Bennett is from.
That's the second time I've heard you mention Rockford and Ben Bennett today.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry about that. But anyways, so a kid, Mark Pearson, good guy, plays softball with me for the last couple of years because one of his good friends is a guy I play like a couple times a week with. And he's like, oh, yeah, I wanted to play one last time with you guys. I got to move. And he's like, and I'm like, oh, where are you going? And he's been at Butler University. He just graduated. And he's like, well, I got a small market job to be a sports announcer. And so, I got to go take it. And da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, I'm like, oh, so where are you going? And he was just kind of sheepish saying, like, Fargo, North Dakota. And I'm like, no shit. Like, you get to go to Fargo, North Dakota. And, so I had to explain to him Fargo and wrestling and all that good stuff. So, yeah, that just happened last night. So I guess he'll be out there in the whole week and a half. And he was like, well, darn, that sounds like one of my first assignments then. And I'm like, yep, it will be.
And because Richard's running the ship out there, he will probably be the guy he has to talk to.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
All right, so where was I?
He's a good guy, though. You'll like him.
Yeah, we'll have to take him to the turf or B-dubs or the new place, Herd and Horns. That's a new bar right next to the Jimmy John's, another Jimmy John's reference, right there on, I believe it's the cross street there. I think it's 12th. I don't even know the streets. I don't even need a GPS. I just know where to go. But are we ready for the next question? Because we're never going to get to anybody at this rate.
All right, sounds good.
All right. James Stockhausen gives us some legitimate questions. Discuss Russian doping. Will we have clean teams in the Olympics and the J-Rob situation? So Russian doping, it's happening in a lot of sports. Will we see clean athletes in Rio? I don't know. J-Rob situation. I was employed by J-Rob, therefore I could be viewed as biased or biased completely the other direction with my professional. But I'm having a wait and see on the J-Rob thing. I'm kind of close to that situation, more so than I can probably say publicly. So I have to kind of recuse myself from any real public comment other than what I've already kind of said on the mat and some other programs. So, Richard, your take?
Russian doping. I value my life, so I don't want to get too far into this.
I value my job at the Olympics, so I'm not going to get into this either.
Right. Yeah, I mean...
Now, Richard's in a tough spot, too, because he's at an NGB. He really can't say a whole lot.
I'm jumping in.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Jumping in. Well, I mean, wrestlers, we want the best competition. Like, when we look back at Jordan Burroughs' legacy, we don't want one of his Olympic golds to be looked at, well, Russia wasn't there. I mean, that's like the first thing off the bat is, as much as we want to be like, yeah, we got to punish all the cheaters if they were running just an absolute state-sponsored doping thing. If somehow the IOC was just basically came down on Russia really hard and then Russia was like, well, screw it, we're protesting the Olympics, it'd really be disappointing to look back in history and go, oh, well, those gold medals by Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Snyder and Jaden Cox were, that was in a year that Russia wasn't even there. so you can't really count them, or that tarnishes their legacy. Like, that would be a real shame. I mean, on the other side of things, though, if we don't have any teeth to where every time you ask athletes for samples, oh, well, they're on this military base, you can't go see them, and they just find out that testers are there and then they just disappear, well, then that becomes like a tough spot too. So it's weird because, I mean, I have mixed feelings because I want the best competition. I want the legacy for our guys. I want to see the best wrestling I can see. I'm a fan. I want to watch all those live streams in August, and I want to see the best wrestling I can possibly see. Although, if we don't have a world anti-doping agency that actually follows through on testing doping and punishing countries for repeatedly basically running doping programs, then we don't really have a anti-doping policy. So it is really an interesting dichotomy when it comes to that. And, you know, it is kind of weird. I mean, us wrestlers are sort of left in a very, very strange spot. I want to believe in Sadulayev. I want to believe that Sadulayev is one of the best wrestlers walking in the world, and that he's not just absolutely doped out of his mind and 5 times stronger than he should be. So then when Jaden Cox beats him this August, it's one of the greatest victories that American wrestling has ever known. That's what I want. I don't want Russia to not be there because of some protest or some ruling or something like that, and then that gold medal, sort of thought as an afterthought.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, I think you want Cox beating the best.
Yep. I want Cox beating everything.
Hold on. Let's see. I've got this queued up. Anyway, that was another question from the same Mr. Amazing is, can we get enough references of that particular individual? Yeah. So, one thing I do want to bring up, though, about the doping thing is when I was at USA Wrestling, and USADA is probably the most aggressive of any of the doping things. I mean, we saw what their executive director did when he was going after Lance Armstrong. I mean, they're aggressive. They're gonna follow things by the book. I mean, we've had good athletes accidentally pop for their own. They honestly didn't know. And we've also had athletes, not necessarily in wrestling, that willingly took performance enhancers and they got popped. So USADA is pretty much non-discriminatory in how it is. But when I was there, and USADA's got to know where you're at all times, and they're not supposed to disrupt your training if it's like out of competition training. So I'm at the training center, and R.C. Johnson, who was a Greco world teamer in 2009, Minnesota guy, Dr. Greco they call him. USADA pops in and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go do the Manitou incline today. And they're supposed to, the USADA reps are supposed to like keep him within sight and be with him at all times during this thing. And RC just decided to go up the incline. For those who don't know, it's a mile almost straight up. It goes up 2,000 feet. I attempted it once, didn't even make it halfway before I said, screw this, and went back to the office. And I was about 250 at the time, so I was still not really in great shape. But RC did that and really kind of screwed with him a little bit. It was funny. Richard, you got any interesting USADA gotcha stories from when you've been there so far?
I was going to say, actually, I went down a couple of weeks ago. I went down, and all the freestyle guys were here, and Snyder, I went down to talk to Snyder, and we were doing a media thing with him. And he's like, yeah, man, USADA busted open everyone's door at 5 a.m. this morning at the training center. They had just arrived and tested them. So our guys and girls, they're going to be clean if they're wrestling in the Olympics because they get tested like crazy. But it's what it is. I think it's good that at least we know that we're not going to be the ones bringing a bad name in. So yeah, I don't know. The incline though, I did that the other day. That was fun.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it.
I actually climbed a whole mountain last weekend.
Well, aren't you special?
Yeah, I went up 14,000 feet. Did it big. But yeah, I mean, as far as the doping thing goes, it's whether the Russians are doing it or not. I mean, who am I to say? I can look at guys and say, oh, that guy's doping, but what do I know? I don't know what he's doing. No one knows what he's doing except for the people in his circle, right? And so I'm with Tommy on this one. Let's get them there. Let's have the best competition possible. If something shady's going on, it'll be found out eventually. Unless, what was the thing that the Rio testing facilities didn't even test the fake test samples?
Yeah, I'm looking for that story. I'd heard that. I haven't read that, but I have heard that. So
yeah, I've seen it a couple times.
Yeah.
But
what was another? Yeah, that was kind of nutty. I mean, and honestly, I've been to Rio already once. I'm, the golfers that are pulling out for Zika and all that. I'm not worried about it, man. I was in the hotel with the Canadian women for that test event, and they were hooking me up with bug spray. Have bug spray, you'll be good to go. And it's not going to be. It's wintertime down there, and that part of Rio really isn't. Other parts of the country have more foliage for mosquitoes and things of that nature. But I'm not worried about it, to be honest with you.
I got a question for you guys.
Look at the range. I mean, we're talking everything from craft beer to foliage.
To foliage.
Tim Foliage?
TR. No, my question was, I have a legit wrestling question. This kind of goes back to the Pat Summit, Dan Gable. You were saying guys just hopping into coaching and going for whatever, 23 straight, where it is. Kale's doing it now. Jordan Burroughs, if Jordan Burroughs stopped wrestling after the Olympics and he took a head coaching job, how long would it take for him to do what Kale's doing? Do you think he could do that? Where would he have to go? Could he go to anywhere and just be Jordan Burroughs? Could he go to, I don't want to pick a school, to what's an open school right now? I don't
Columbia?
know.
Yeah, that's the only position with an opening at the moment.
If Jordan Burroughs goes to Columbia this year, I mean, that might be different because it's Ivy League. But for the sake of argument, how long is it going to take for him to win a national title at Columbia or wherever he may go that's not Iowa or Oklahoma State or Penn State or Ohio State, something of that caliber?
I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know is because, Kale had a couple years as an assistant coach. And, he had an opportunity really Jordan's was technically on staff in Nebraska. But I'm not. I don't know. I haven't been to a clinic. I mean, I've seen Kale's clinics. I mean, I've seen Kale teach technique, and it's like, yeah, it was apparent. I haven't seen it with my own eyes, and I don't doubt for a second that he's going to be Jordan Burroughs is going to be a good coach. I just know I'm just curious on what his style is going to be. Because it takes a couple years. When you're out of you're done competing to really throw everything into coaching. Granted, Kale did have that one comeback year, but I'm curious. That's one of those things where I'm hopeful. I'm like, I think he can. Now, if he chooses to be a wrestling coach, because you never know what's going to happen with endorsements. I mean, he could be the darling of Rio and come out with never really having to have a real job again because he's such a name. So I think he can be, absolutely. I think we're kind of biased in our sense that we hope he will be because he's such a great guy, such a tremendous wrestler, and his demeanor is amazing. So I think that demeanor, that calmness, that ability to speak can translate well into recruiting. I think he would be landing recruits left and right with whatever school he was at. But of course, those schools have to have the resources to give it to him. I mean, I remember when Duquesne cut their program, they were a Division I school, a Catholic institution in Pittsburgh, and the discussion was, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Well, John Smith, if you put him at Duquesne with the resources that Duquesne had, he couldn't make them Oklahoma State, no matter how good of a coach he was. So I think it's got to be the perfect storm of right environment, right location, right resources, plus having the right staff to go along with it. Because it's not just, Kale doesn't just have one guy. He's not the only guy teaching those guys. So you've got his brother, you got Casey Cunningham, you've had a slew of volunteers and other assistants throughout there that just, it's a machine. It's a whole coaching system. So Burroughs is a smart, shrewd guy. He's going to surround himself by guys. I don't doubt for a moment if Brian Snyder doesn't take a head coaching job somewhere after Jordan gets done, because I think that's why he's hanging around Nebraska, is to continue with Jordan's competitive career. I think if he lands at the right Big 10, Big 12 school, even ACC, even an EIWA school with the right admissions type of situations, he'd really change the landscape immediately.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking in generalities here too. Like, how do we grow and expand at the D1 level into more schools? How great would it be to see a guy like Jordan, or an Olympian, someone of his caliber when Kyle Snyder gets done, Jaden Cox, whoever, just go to a brand new school, start up a whole new thing. How do we expand? That's just kind of how I'm thinking about it. What if, I don't know, a California school, what if UCLA popped up a program and Jordan Burroughs is the face?
Oh, dude, that's like the perfect storm right there.
Something like that. How do we grow it? How do we do that? I just hate to see, it seems like wrestling tries to like stick to a certain system and doesn't change, so expansion, that's just what's on my mind. How do we change it, shake it up? How do we break the wheel, right, Tommy? I don't know.
Well, isn't that the natural progression, though? Like MAC football on Tuesday nights on ESPN2 or what have you, to where like Ben Roethlisberger is playing for Miami of Ohio. Because, back in the day, he would have looked at, whoever sent him a letter, whether it was Michigan or Oklahoma State or Alabama, and he would have went there. There was no questions asked. Like, that was the biggest school that gave me a letter. I'm going there. Well, now, like, you have kids looking at the depth chart. And I think wrestling is really starting to see that. And a lot of that is, sort of emblematic with Capalizio, with the job he did at Binghamton and then the job he's done at NC State, where I can get great coaching and I don't have to go to Iowa. I don't have to go to Oklahoma State. I don't have to go to one of the huge programs. I can go compete for a national title, and I can be at one of these other schools. And with the exposure we're getting with live streams and the extended coverage and the more podcasts and everything like that, the more news out there at the fingertips for these kids that are just becoming 7th and 8th graders, is just, they're growing up with this. So this is the world that they've known. And I think they're going to be this new generation of looking at, where can I be the 165-pounder? Where can I be the 174-pounder? Well, I'm not going to Penn State. Why would I want to be behind Mark Hall for the next 4 years? Yeah, it's Cale Sanderson. Yeah, it's Casey Cunningham. Yeah, it's Penn State. But why would I sit the bench? I would rather go to Pittsburgh. I would rather go to Columbia. I'd rather go to Michigan. I'd rather go somewhere else. I think that's kind of the natural progression that wrestling's going to kind of take after that you've seen in more of football and basketball at this point.
I hope so. I think it might hurt our sport having so dominant teams, the same Iowas and Oklahoma States at the top every year. I want to see these other teams shake it up. How cool is it when you see Villanova win the NCAA basketball title? That's why, even though they beat OU in the Final Four. But
well, it's not like I'm not celebrating when George Mason and VCU make the Final Four, because they were rivals of my alma mater. So, yeah, good for small conferences. So screw those guys. Yeah, although I do like George Mason wrestling, because they do have a wrestling program. So I dislike everything related to George Mason except the wrestling program.
Yeah, you can say that team and individually, right? You can have a guy from George Mason theoretically win an NCAA title, and that can change the whole program and the culture and put it on the rise.
Well, look at what Mark Cody did when he was an American. Josh Glenn was a national champion. Derek Moore at UC Davis before they cut their pro. I hear the rumblings they might be, they could be potentially coming back. I'm not sure how soon. I know there's conversations about UC Davis coming back, but Derek Moore is the only All-American in that school's history overall, and he's a national champion. So, you saw things like that. Guy was like 4th in the state and wins it. We talked about Stephen Neal at Bakersfield when he was wrestling, and the teams that Bakersfield had, for examle, and when TJ Kerr was coaching before that, Joe Say. Edinburgh's trophy run.
J.P. O'Connor at Harvard, yeah.
Harvard, yeah. Harvard's had 2 national champions in recent years. Before that, they had to go back to like 1940 something, maybe the late 30s, with their only other national champion before O'Connor and Jesse Jansen. So I like to see those, coming from a smaller program. Richard, you're a Big 12 guy, so you're not part of this particular. You don't know what it's like, man. You don't know what it's like being a mid-major.
You know what though? I want to see someone outside. I'm entitled. Yeah, thanks.
Well, he is 20-something, so it's that part of that generation. No offense to the listeners in that age bracket. I'm just talking about Richard.
Just me. I'm the entitled one with the good looks and hair and charm and.
And what is that? See, I've got Richard on video. Tommy, you can't. Never mind. I'm not gonna blow up your spot like that.
Yeah.
V bombs.
Now, how cool would it be if we saw a team outside the Big 12, Big 10 win an NCAA title in wrestling? How cool would that be? I would love it. That would be amazing to see.
Well, we did see Ohio State win their first ever national championship just last year. So, I mean,
very true.
I know they're in the Big Ten, and I know they're in Ohio in a wrestling state, but still, at least it was a new school, which was a kind of a big mile for wrestling.
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
Jason, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I'm looking. Oh, yeah, we had one from since Kevin Claunch did bail. He actually was asking. It's in our group chat. I'll bring it out. Let's see, where are we at? Okay. Let's see. We're asking Tommy. This is the group text here. Let's see. Okay, where's Tommy? Kevin. He's scrambling to find beer, but he'll be ready. The question, he's like, if you guys are talking about first time. Oh, yeah, here's one. You guys are talking first-time Olympians. Which Olympian has the best chance to medal? And then he was asking about shoes. And I'm a guy that did not have very much of a competitive career. I have owned 3 pairs of wrestling shoes my entire life. I could not tell you what the first pair was. I know they were a pair of black Asics. I'm not sure what they were. They were borrowed. That was what my high school career was with. Now, since then, the 2 shoes that I have that I actually do know the name because I'm not a shoe file, I do have all 3 pair of the Jordan Burroughs Elite Cross Trainer shoes, the green and yellow, the lime green and gray, the red and the gold, and then the 2-pack one with his own design on it. But so I have in my closet right here, still in the box. I did put them on to try them on, so I can say I actually did wear these for like 20 seconds. I have a pair of the JB Elite version 2.0s, and then the shoes that I actually wore to the Minnesota Storm Greco practice a couple months ago, which I think I'm still sore from, the Asics Split Second 5s, the big white ones. They look like the Rulons, but they're not. So those are the 3 pair of wrestling shoes I've ever owned, 2 of which are still in my possession.
So wrestling shoes, I'm going to break it down into look and feel. Looks-wise, my favorite wrestling shoe was the white leather Kindle Cross editions, the Asics, the 3 thick black stripes running down the side. I mean, those were the pristine.
Would be 3 stripes would be Adidas.
Yep. 3 black stripe Adidas running down the side. Anyways, so yeah, those were my favorite looks-wise. I actually owned a pair from Kindle that he actually wore, and I wore those puppies out in high school. And then feel, I like the original Rulon Gardner's black with the gold sig and the gold Asics swoosh. Swoosh.
Brand management from a guy working on USA Wrestling social branding. So interesting.
Anyways, so it gets confusing, but the black Rulons first edition, then the leather white Kindle Crosses. Those are my 2 favorite shoes. And what was the other question?
The best first-time Olympian with a chance to medal.
First-time Olympian for us with a chance to medal.
Well, Snyder's a first-time Olympian. That's easy.
Yeah.
Adeline Gray on the women's side, first-time Olympian. That's easy. Same with Helen. That's easy. Greco, first-time Olympian, best chance to medal. I think Robbie. Because Provisor's been there. Oh, Bisick hasn't been there, he's got a couple world medals. You know what? Any first-timer, I think, really does have a good shot at medaling.
I think everyone that we're taking to Rio has a shot at medaling. Legitimately, everyone has a shot. You never know what the draw is going to be like. If you're going to be on the top with 8 people, then you have to win 2 matches to get to a medal match. I mean, or you're on the bottom with, double that. But
actually, yeah, you're right, double.
Yeah, so it's I think they all really do have a great chance at medaling. I really like Jaden Cox. I really like the way he wrestles. I think he can pull it off. So yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to break Richard's spirit here.
Yeah, he's trying to get me on Skype right now, but I'm not doing it. I'm not a sucker. I'll defer to Tommy though. So Kendall Cross, Rulon Gardner, Jaden Cox. Those are my 3 answers.
Well, as a Comstock Park, good old graduate, the green and gold Asics Internationals, I think are the best shoes that I ever had. I mean, those were cool, and then they were color coordinated as well. So I really enjoyed those. First time Olympian has to be Adeline Gray. I mean, she, I think she's by far got the best odds of anybody to win a gold medal. And I even think she has a better chance of gold medal than Jordan Burroughs at this point. So, as far as first-time Olympians go, I think it's definitely her. But I do like a lot of our men and women's chance to medal. And what a I was looking into the schedule this week, and what a Thursday where we'll have Adeline, Helen Maroulis, and then Elena Pierskova all going on the same day. Where hopefully we get multiple gold medals. I know we've never had a female gold medalist for the United States, but hopefully we pick up 2 or 3 there on that day. So, that's a hell of a day. And of course, Helen's weight class with Yoshida, with what she's done, 3 gold medals and 13 other world championships. And she nearly lost to Matson. She's taken a couple losses in other places. And then, the Nigerian girl, which I'll defer to Jason as far as saying her last name. She had the 6-6 match with Helen back in November, and she's a rising star as well. So, I mean, there's 4 females right there that are really, really technically good wrestlers. And that is probably the most intriguing weight class, so what a great day for, hopefully for American female wrestling, but also just for female wrestling in general.
Yeah, and I can't remember her first name off the top of my head, but I know the last name of the Nigerian. Odekaroye. Odekaroye. Because I had to say that a lot in Vegas. Yeah, and I'll tell you this, with the World Championships being monster brackets, especially the year before the Olympic year, I'm getting off topic. This is about names. Ken Berger and I had to get about 600 athletes' names for the World Championships. The Mongolians terrified me. And I'm not worried about Magomed Murad Gadzhimagomedov at all. If I'm not mixing Magomeds and Gadzhimag, I mean, I'm probably, if I said that guy's name wrong, there's probably another wrestler with his name that I've nailed. So it's good. The Olympics we're looking 18, 19 a bracket. So I've got considerably less prep work to do for Rio than I did the World Championships. But Odekaroye, the dancing queen.
Yep, the singing. They really loved her in India because
Adeline was even saying that's not an act. I had Adeline on the show talking about because she was on her team. And it was just like, yeah, that's what she did. I'd walk by her room, and she's out there just belting out, singing by herself in the room. It was like, oh, cool.
That's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, hopefully Helen beats her, obviously. But she's certainly somebody that I honestly think if she took home the gold medal, it wouldn't be that much of a surprise.
I just know if that's the case, Richard and Gary are going to probably be ready to A, celebrate, and B, at the end of the day, throw themselves off a bridge. Because when Burroughs won, I was on the staff then, and when Varner won, it was just like, I mean, Gary was just like, all right, well, I got to go do this. It was just up to the other part of the staff to get things figured out, early part of that next. I mean, that's going to be a media tour that if you have 3 in one day, that's the best you can hope for. And you almost want that workload. Richard, it's going to be your first Olympic Games. Just Red Bulls.
I'm more of a monster man.
Take it all in.
No, I really hope we get 3 gold. I hope 14 gold, but Haley has a shot to be the first Olympic gold medalist woman for the U.S. the day before that. So hopefully I can get the runaround that day with Haley, and then I'll have all the experience. Actually, Thilke's the first one to wrestle on day 1. We go Greco, then women, then men's freestyle. But
that was an engaging interview, by the way. If you had listen to bonus points, that's what I think. With Richard on the network, I've kind of backed off on the Olympians because I used to get the world teamers, and then Richard. So I was like, all right, you know what? USA Wrestling, your brand, you got them. You can sit in a room with them for 2 hours. I've got to sit there and babysit and do podcasts. So anything Olympic related, go over to bonus points. I'll get some of the older ones on there, including the latest episode of Hall of Fame Legends with Bill Harlow that I released this week. And that was an amazing thing. So a bunch of new stuff coming down the pipe. And I failed to mention this at the beginning. Depending on which show I release first, whether it's this one or the Old Dominion Monarch Mattcast, this is episode either 996 or 997 that I've distributed since 2008 in terms of the podcasting. So I think when I redid the numbers, I was thinking, okay, in Fargo, I might break that 1,000-point mark or 1,000 show mark. And me and Richard could do another series from Buffalo Wild Wings, which will happen again this year, probably multiple times. And so we're approaching 1,000 here. And that's crazy. Richard, you've got 45. It would be over 1,000 if I was going to let Tommy and Kevin on the network, but I don't necessarily know. If you haven't experienced Bloodround and you're not, if this is your first time listening, it's one of those things. So yeah, we're up almost 1,000 podcasts available within the network. I mean, that's all on MadTalkOnline.com. Almost 1,000 episodes.
That's incredible. No, good work on you.
I have no life.
Wow.
Hire an intern.
I'll
be your intern, Jason.
Yeah, but see, you're still in your 20s. You still might be able to work for beer. I can't really do that on a business model.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I applaud you, Jason. I really applaud your efforts. You're doing great. And I'm done.
You're just saying that because I got to sit next to you for a full week in Fargo, and then you've got to hear me for a full week in Rio.
Yep. Yes, I do. I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait.
And congrats on the gig, by the way. I mean, being the voice of Olympic wrestling. I mean, geez, oh, Pete.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm waiting for the non-disclosure agreement because I know that Ken Berger, when he announced the London Games, we interviewed him there, and he's like, "Hey, you need to probably take that down." Apparently, there's a non-disclosure agreement. I haven't received it yet, so I'm kind of towing the line. I don't want to jeopardize the potential gig by talking about it, but I don't know what I can and can't say other than I'll be the English-speaking voice in Rio, and that's basically I think the extent of it. So. Been a pretty good year. I'd say it's been a pretty good year for me in that respect.
Do we have any other awesome questions?
Let's see. Let's throw out let's see. Nothing from nothing. No hypothetical matchups. Why don't we, dude? Okay, let's do hypothetical matchups. I've been thinking about. I'm stealing stuff from Bloodround because it's not called stealing when you actually take it, implement it, and show other people. That's called coaching, right? It's like people
and we all know you're jealous. We just all know you're jealous that we come up with these amazing things.
Yeah, because I wasn't the last one buying at the Olympic trials. I think I'm not jealous. Anyway, so hypothetical matchup. Let's say MacGyver versus Batman without the utility belt.
Which Batman?
Better question. That's actually. How about this? Let's have a.
Do you want Batman to win or lose?
No. Well, here's the thing. We got to have a mini Batman tournament to whoever emerges out of the Batman tournament. Then
there's no question who the best Batman.
Okay, who is it?
Christian Bale.
Okay, he's
Batman.
a very good Batman. Although I did like. It was weird when Michael Keaton. I was like, no way he's going to be Batman. This is like '89. Richard, were you even born yet?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, so when Batman came out, it's like Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. I'm like, well, Jack Nicholson's going to be Batman. This is before the internet, and I heard about it. I was like, well, Jack Nicholson, he's like he's the alpha male actor, and Michael was freaking Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, the Joker, same thing. No, I thought Keaton was a pretty strong Batman. Clooney, I don't think I ever saw that one. I don't think I saw the Val Kilmer one either. So basically, Christian Bale. So Christian Bale versus Richard Dean Anderson without the utility belt.
It's no contest.
All right. MacGyver, Richard Dean Anderson versus Adam West, Batman. That was before all of us were born.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Adam West is a little bit before my time. I mean, I was born in '83, so I mean that's kind of it's a little bit before me. All I remember Adam West for is Family Guy.
He is the mayor of Quahog, so remember he's got that in his
head. That is true. So I'm going to give the edge to him. I'm going to say he gets like some sort of weird exposure early and kind of coasts to an 8-4 victory.
Okay, Richard, your score?
My score? Well,
This is MacGyver versus 60s era Adam West, a.k.a. Mayor of Quahog on Family Guy Batman.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go MacGyver on this one. I don't think Batman had the skill set or the ninja training, Dark Shadows, whatever they call it, at that point in time to attack MacGyver. He's too slick on his feet. Score wise, I peg it at. Well, are we doing folk style or freestyle too? We didn't specify.
Freestyle. We're talking Olympics here, so freestyle.
Okay, freestyle. Then we're going. I'm going 12-4. He doesn't quite get the tech fall.
I think in Greco, though, it's definitely all Richard Dean Anderson, a.k.a. MacGyver, because if you've seen Adam West is not defined as Batman. I mean, he's not jacked up. I mean, you just go upper body with him, and you're tossing him around like a rag doll. All right, next one. Let's see. Ooh. Tommy,
I would like to applaud anyone still listening, by the way.
Yeah, Tommy, I'm going to throw it out to you. Let's get a hypothetical matchup that may or may not involve actual wrestling people.
Is this on me?
Yeah, you call the matchup.
Ooh, okay. I am going to take Peter Griffin for Family Guy.
Okay, so the weight class is unlimited.
Peter Griffin versus Homer Simpson.
Okay, so I'm going to say Homer Simpson episode where he doesn't get super fat and wear the moo-moo is a better game, especially late in the second period in freestyle. But
by the way, the episode where Homer Simpson becomes like the heavyweight contender in boxing is like one of the greatest episodes in television history. I mean, fighting Dredrick Tatum. I mean, Dredrick Tatum being like, I like Homer Simpson, I respect him, but I'm going to make orphans of his children.
Praise to Allah, right? No, I'm just kidding. That was the Mike Tyson quote. I'm not going to get into a holy war right now. That was just a Mike Tyson reference. Homer Simpson. I still got. Thing is, I think Peter Griffin's susceptible. He's got that bad knee. You know how many times he hits it and he goes, ah. I mean, he's going to run out of injury time. And you guys were talking about injury time today, so I got my money on Homer J. Simpson.
We were talking about injury time. Yeah, that's right.
All right, Richard, Peter Griffin, Homer Simpson.
I'll go with Homer. Simply because the who produced The Simpsons is a wrestling fan. That's my logic.
Boogeyman! Oh man, can't believe I actually had that queued up.
Oh my goodness!
All right, Richard, last one because we're going down the rail. We're off the rails here.
We're off the rails. So I have to come up with one now.
Well, how about Gary Abbott in his prime at Boston University versus Cody Bickley? They were both the same weight class in college.
Let's not do that.
Richard's not going to throw his boss. Well, actually, boss is. I mean, I guess both of them outrank him. So, let's try. I'm trying to think of a USA Wrestling inter squad. Les Gutchis versus. Oh wait, that's the end of that discussion. Ooh, how about this, Richard?
Yeah.
Les Gutchis in his prime versus Brandon Slay in his prime. Catch weight.
Catch weight?
Yeah, they say they meet in the middle.
Oh man. I'll go with Slay. I'm not convinced, but I'll pick him.
Because he hasn't had Les on the show yet. You should ask Les that question when you get on the show.
Just because Les didn't reply to one of my texts today, that's why I'm going with Slay. Slay always replies to me, and he lets me take him out to dinner and spend mass amounts of money on his steak. And
nice.
Yeah, Tommy, who do you got, Slay or Gutchis?
Have you seen Les Gutchis today, though? I mean, he looks like, if we need someone at the World Cup because he has some freak injuries, like, we could still throw him out there.
Yeah, Richard, you see Les.
I literally saw him today. He looks jacked, but he's not quite as jacked as me. So,
I got a Les Gutchis story for you. So he gets hired when I'm there, and my office is on the second floor. It's kind of like a not a tri-level, but it's like a split entry. You can come up into the main doors, and you're on the second floor. And Richard's office is downstairs. Down the hill, there's a little driveway. You walk in that way by the mailroom. And so I'm on the floor in between Jamie McNabb from National Teams and Tony Black. So I'm in the middle. I've got a nice window. Got a big window, got a big Hickory Wrestling sticker and some other stuff in the window there. It's still there. So Les comes up, and I didn't really know him very well. the first couple months, and he walks up, puts his arms up over the door jamb, and he's got a tight shirt. It's a Friday, so it's casual jeans Friday, whatever. And he goes, I tell you, Bryant, man, I woke up this morning and I thought I was sick. You know, I woke up, I looked at my stomach, and there were these 8 symmetrical bumps on them. I don't know what the heck they were hard as a rock. I didn't know what to do. And then he just flips me off and walks away. I was like, I like this guy. He's got 8 perfectly symmetrical abs. I have 1 giant one.
Tommy, here's one for you. Jon Snow versus David Taylor.
I'm out.
In freestyle and Greco or folk style? I mean, what are we going here?
We're going freestyle, but Snow gets to use his sword and the wolf ghost. David Taylor's the magic man himself, so that's all he needs. All right, I give up. Jason, you have anything else for us? My Jimmy John still hasn't come. I don't know.
Well, there's that the taco stand across the street that's pretty good. And Albert Tacos down on Austin Bluffs. They got a monster burrito. That's good stuff. I do miss Colorado Springs, Tom. I don't know if you've been there. That the food options in the Springs were great because nobody was actually from the Springs. So they literally had every chain restaurant known to man on either the stretch on Powers or the stretch on Academy. So which kind of ran parallel. So and in my day, I lived 37 seconds from the office in the townhouse complex behind the German-looking apartments. So I could actually walk to work multiple times. But there's a little Mexican spot, Pueblo Viejo. Anyway, we're not talking, or when Flower's working at the USOC, the training center, making the pad thai. Richard tweeted that the other day, and a bunch of the people did about the Flower. She's a chef at the Olympic Training Center. Unbelievable. Now Richard, they did bring her to London last time for the U.S. athletes. So I don't know where I'm staying yet, but if you're in the same grounds like they had Team USA and on the campus at the University of East London, they're going to bring the chefs from the USOC and the training center. So you could be in luck with some food from Flower in Rio.
I'm pumped for that. I'm definitely pumped for some Flower pad thai and some Zika. Let's go.
Anyway, I got a quick thing, though. So Rio is actually like 2 time zones ahead of us, right? But they don't do daylight savings time. So this August, the wrestling will actually only be an hour ahead of Eastern time.
Hold on, I'm pulling up my world clock just because I have, here's an example what wrestling does to me, my world clock. Okay, Minneapolis, Rio. Yeah, it's 2 hours ahead of where we're at right now. And then other cities, Belgrade, Bern, Budapest, Istanbul, Kiev, Moscow, Tbilisi, Tehran, Baku, Tashkent, Bangkok, Krasnoyarsk, Ulaanbaatar, and Tokyo. Those are the cities on my world clock. But yeah, what was weird is when I was down there in February, it was even more. It was weird. It was like 3 or 4 hours ahead of where I was at. And it was like, why is that? And I looked at the map and I realized, oh, wait, Rio is like east of Bermuda, straight down, the lines of longitude. So.
Yeah, that doesn't really make sense in your brain. It doesn't seem like that's the case. It is a lot further east than you would think.
What do they call them? The Mercator projections that make Greenland look as big as South America? Richard's like, what the heck are you guys talking about?
Well, and then there's the whole what is the Tordesillas Treaty or something like that between the Spanish and the Portuguese or what have you. So you kind of have that going on as well. But
in case this is your first time listening.
But I mean, how interesting is that though, as far as live streams this year for the Olympics, and the fact that it'll only be basically an hour ahead of American time. You can just take the day off and watch wrestling.
Well, in our case, take 6 days off and watch wrestling.
Exactly. I mean, well, you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, you can actually just live stream that stuff all week. I mean, how awesome is that? I mean, watch the Olympics. You can essentially just not miss a match. I mean, you could do that the last time the Olympics were in the Western Hemisphere, which was 1996.
London and Beijing were tough, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's just cool, man. I mean, we can watch all this stuff unfold.
I like it. Richard, final thoughts?
I'm good, man. I'm just really hungry right now. So
yeah, I was gonna throw a short time segment out there, but actually, you know what? I'm just gonna draw one or two questions from the short time segment. Which,
yeah, hey, you know what? Let's do that.
All right, fine. Let's see. I don't have that music queued up, but Yeah. So anyway, we'll just go back. I'm going to play the music, but I'm not going to have any timer because it's kind of pointless. All right, Richard, Tommy, are you ready to go short time?
What's up? I'm ready.
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Question 1. We'll start with all these go Richard first, then Tommy second. Best match you've ever watched?
I will say, shoot, Snyder Gadisov.
In person, Grohollis and Alton in the Michigan Penn State duel a couple years ago. I mean, it wasn't the most high level thing you saw, but it was the craziest, strangest match and most entertaining match I've seen.
And I typically don't get to answer these, so I'm going to start throwing mine in here just in case. Just one that pops off the top of my head was Burroughs beating Sargush the first time they wrestled in Istanbul. Question 2. Tonight I win the Olympic gold. What are you having for dinner?
I am having a big old steak, some potatoes, maybe a little mac and cheese, Caesar salad, probably a lobster tail, some crab with it.
Ooh, I'm having beef Wellington, mashed potatoes, some lobster bisque soup beforehand, maybe even some crab cakes if I'm hungry.
Well, it's a wrestling tournament, so I'm probably going to end up having Buffalo Wild Wings. Number 3, who's the best wrestler people don't talk about? And that's usually people like us.
Zach Bailey.
I think my Nigerian girl. I think she's a legit threat at the Olympics this summer.
I'm going to go with Andy Bisick on that one.
Okay, fine.
Because he's Greco. All right, all-time favorite flavor of Gatorade?
The Glacier Freeze.
Lemon lime. I'm boring, but I love lemon lime.
Lemon lime's always a go-to. Mine was the lemon ice.
Ooh.
All right, best wrestling movie?
There's so many to choose from. Vision Quest, I guess.
Win-Win is a really good movie, actually.
It is good. I can say that one too, but I'll go Vision Quest. You can't beat the musical score in that one.
Yeah, and Michael Chandler just shot-for-shot remake of that. That was great. I'm also going to go with Vision Quest, partially because, like Tommy had referenced on episode 90 of Bloodround, the 3-part series that I had with Matthew Modine, Frank Jasper, and Terry Davis, the author of the book. So Vision Quest holds a special place in my heart. So yeah. Question 6, your favorite international wrestler that is not American. I have to put a caveat on this because we're all going to pick Burroughs or somebody from the U.S. So your favorite all-time international wrestler not from the United States.
You ask these people and they have to answer in 90 seconds. It's ridiculous.
See, I have whistles blowing
longer than 90 seconds.
Yeah, Richard's got hey, a little applause at the end of his segment. I've got whistles blowing like it's like Tom Baranoski announcing reffing a wrestling match.
Exactly.
But anyway, Richard, you're still on the comm here.
Yeah. My favorite international wrestler, not American, right now. That's tough, man. That's tough. I love the Russians. I love watching the Russians wrestle. I don't want to make anyone mad. I'll say Gatsalov.
All right, Tommy.
Yali's Bone from Cuba is just like always tossing people and putting up a ton of points. Although I have to root for my maybe cousin Zbigniew Baranoski from Poland, which still made me laugh when I got about 35 tweets as far as why I was wrestling Jaden Cox in the semifinals of the Olympic qualifier. So that did make me laugh. But,
you know who else I love? Torgol Askarov from Azerbaijan.
Yeah, he's a good one.
I love watching him.
I'm going to go with, being a heavyweight, my all-time favorite wrestler of all time was Bruce Baumgartner, but since we're not Americans, I'm going to stick with a heavyweight theme with Arthur Tamazov from Uzbekistan.
That's a good one, too.
Via Russia. All right, so I actually played the Mega Millions tonight. So as we record this, this show may or may not be released depending on the results of that drawing. But you win the Powerball or the Mega Millions. Richard, first college program you're starting.
University of Texas.
Man, I'd like to do Florida State. I think they need somebody, but man, I'd love to do Notre Dame.
Yeah, I like the Notre Dame reference. I'm going to go with the College of William and Mary, which is a school that
the
Tribe. About 20 minutes from where I grew up. So they had a Division I program at one point. It'd be a Division I team on the peninsula. And William and Mary actually is the parent institution that Old Dominion was founded out of. ODU used to be a 2-year branch of the College of William and Mary before becoming a 4-year university on its own. So William and Mary would be my number one. All right. Richard, best JV guy on your high school team?
Jason Thomas.
Tommy? My buddy Carl Steinmeier is really good. He was just kind of caught in the middle of a bunch of good guys. Which was too bad. But tough kid. I mean, just really, really tough, and could have used the experience. But we had good guys right through those spots.
Yeah, I'm not going to say me because I might have been the worst guy on the team. But in this one, I have to kind of phrase it because there was one year this guy was JV, and then an injury caused him to get thrust in the lineup right before the qualifiers, and he actually ended up placing at States. So I'm counting that as a JV guy that placed at States, and we only enter one per way. It would be Joey Miskell or a kid we had named David Matson, who moved away, I think, after his freshman or sophomore year. His brother Tim was with us, but those two guys, it reminded me because I went and watched one of my favorite matches of all time. I posted it on Twitter the other day. It was my teammate Brad Fitzpatrick beating a guy from Grundy in the typical Grundy-Pocosin duel. You know, the rivalry was fierce back in the 90s, and it was a battle of returning state champs, and Fitz won about 13-8 in a crazy match. I mean, had the returning state champ on his back, cradled up. I mean, and Brad was like a super underdog, so I just wanted to throw that little Pocosin reference out. That has nothing to do with the best JV guy, except for it's either Joey Miskell or David Matson. So, all right. Richard, best restaurant on the planet. Your favorite restaurant on the planet?
Cholino's Mexican restaurant.
Tommy.
Fred's Pizza. Grand Rapids, Michigan here. Fred's Pizza.
Cheddar's Casual Cafe. There is one now in the Springs, but there was one Newport News where I grew up. So Cheddar's is the winner there. There's actually one in Iowa City or Coralville, too. I didn't get a chance to make it. They have a dynamite country fried steak and a dynamite Monte Cristo. All right. Number 10, this is a newer question that Richard has already stolen from me at least once, and I started it with Ray Brinzer. What is your spirit animal?
Well, considering it's on my chest, I will go with the dire wolf. Or just wolf.
Always with the Game of Thrones references. I love it. I don't know. Baranoski was really, really tough to say for a lot of the Southerners in the Army, so I just became known as Bear. And my ex was Mrs. Bear, and Chloe was just a bear cub, so, it just kind of became Bear. I mean, a lot of the people, when Facebook came around, didn't even actually know my actual name. So
I had that same problem for completely different reasons. And I asked this question. I haven't really given it much thought, and it's like, okay. This particular episode's caused me to go, okay, I guess I got to answer these questions in case I'm ever put in the spot. I don't know. I kind of have to think of the duck, and here's why. Here's why. It's not just because of the Gordon Bombay speech in the first
Quack.
Mighty Ducks, but
Quack.
that what he says
Quack.
there.
Quack.
Yeah. Okay,
Quack.
I don't, flying V, whatever. But I grew up on the water. We always had ducks around, and they're just cool animals, man. And my neighbor has a swimming pool, so when they have the cover on it, when the snow melts, these ducks just fly and basically live in their pool until they shoo them off, and they're in the backyard eating out of the bird feeder. I just always like ducks, mallards especially. It's just they're just cool animals, man. Sometimes they'll come up and eat at your hand, and sometimes they're going to attack the crap out of each other, and they're going to run the other dude off. And I just like ducks. Ducks are cool animals. So loyal, fiercely loyal, and if you attack one, they all attack. Quarter of an inch, Charlie. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up. So, closing thoughts. We'll start with Tommy.
Ooh, I don't know. Podcasting is awesome. Support that kind of stuff. And then, my big thing, if you haven't listened to Bloodround, and maybe you don't want to listen to Bloodround, that's okay. That's cool. We keep getting listeners somehow, which I don't really understand people's judgment, but that keeps happening. And, you see an article about wrestling, click on it. Even if you don't read it, just click on it. I mean, the way everything is measured these days is clicks. And, you see all these articles leading up to the Olympics about Adeline Gray and Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Snyder and Helen and everybody. You see an article, just click on it. Get those clicks up. I mean, if the Washington Post does an article about wrestling and only 20 people click on it, well, they're probably not doing any articles about wrestling anytime soon. So, if you see an article, I mean, the easiest, laziest thing we can do to support wrestling is retweet, like, and just click on articles.
Yeah, I will echo those sentiments as well.
Unoriginal. Never mind.
No, you didn't let me finish. I just wanted to give Tommy his due. Yeah, so follow Bloodround on Twitter because they're great. Listen to their podcast. Everything Tommy said. I would also like to thank my sponsors, Monster and Grizzly, for everything they've done for me. I don't think we need to go much into Rio talk just yet because I think Jason and I will probably do a nice big long podcast about it. Just stick with the Matt Talk Podcast Network. Listen to Short Time. Get your wrestling fix. And, we'll see you in Rio. See you in Fargo.
Subscribe to the newsletter, too. JB's newsletter, and then that kind of ties into my whole click on everything thing.
Yeah, because I've got to click on those things just to add them to the newsletter. But I don't really have any pressing final thoughts other than, kind of one of the reasons I was thinking about having Richard and Tommy on. It's just, this medium. We've had an opportunity. There was I know the first wrestling podcast, and it took me, I didn't discover it till like last year. And when I went back through and researched, I was like, oh, these guys have been around since like 2005. Is some guys out of Iowa that do a Mat Slammers podcast. And they do it just during the wrestling season. That's the longest running wrestling podcast out there. I mean, they're 10, 11 years at this point. So give them a listen. You can go to the directory at mattalkonline.com/directory. Every single wrestling podcast, and then some shows that frequently reference wrestling, like Chael Sonnen's You're Welcome. He talks about wrestling quite a bit. Some of the MMA shows actually have some wrestling stuff. Coit Cooper, Jim Harshaw, wrestling people that do kind of self-help type stuff. But I love this medium. I mean, we've got 30 to 40, 40-something shows now where there was none. I mean, Wrestling 411, when I did that in 2008, that was one of the early ones, along with Eddie Goldman, No Holds Barred, features a lot of wrestling too. But Mat Slammers, I got to give them a tip of the cap. They were the first ones in here, and glad to see they're still rolling. A couple episodes each season. I think they go 10 episodes a season. So this podcasting thing, it's on the move. I mean, it's on demand. I use the Overcast app, which is iOS only at this point, and sometimes you hit that 1.5 times speed. You're not hearing 2.5 hours of talk. You're hearing, you can take that down about 90 minutes, but. I'm appreciative to everybody that listens, everybody that contributes to the Matt Talk Podcast Network through our Patreon campaign at mattalkonline.com/join the team. Richard does a tremendous show here on the network. Tommy show, again, while not on the network, tremendous show, great fan interaction. It's like every conversation you have with your buddy at a bar after a wrestling tournament. And those are conversations Richard and I have had at a bar after a wrestling tournament that wasn't mic'd up. So, real refreshing there. And we got, Flo's got a couple of podcasts. We've got, Earl's got Sudden History, which is a great new show on the network. So those are my thoughts. I mean, it doesn't take you much to subscribe. Again, it's another lazy thing. You click there, you click subscribe on every one of these links. So you listen to it. You don't have to listen to the same 20 songs on top 40 stations or ESPN droning on about the big 3.5 of the sports or, things of that nature. So that's all I want to say. Thanks to everybody that listens to everybody's wrestling podcast, because that gives us more credence in the space. This is a medium that it's been around for 10 years. It's not going anywhere. it's constantly evolving. So for Richard Immel and the Oberon one, Tommy Baranoski, thank you for listening to episode 268 of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. No closing thoughts tonight. This is just where we're going to end it. So thanks for listening.
Rock on.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is brought to you by Flips Wrestling. Share your attitude and be heard at flipswrestling.com.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.